Good evening, everyone. You join me tonight at the Buckingham Palace here in London. I'm AdrianJWilliams, and tonight I will be bringing you coverage here on WilliamsTV of His Majesty King Alexander's Jubilee Parade, who's to mark 1 year since His Majesty the King ascended as the King of the United Kingdom. We will be bringing you coverage from our cameras, which are down at Horse Guards Parade, where the procession is about to commence. As you can see, looking there down the army ranks, we have the Grenadier Guards, followed by the Rifles Regiment and the Parachute Regiment, with the King's Royal Hussars up here currently at Buckingham Palace, ready for the gun salute and later celebrations. Again, the final preparations are just being made, with Grenadier Guards officers Lieutenant Emoji Law and Lieutenant Sophie Williams just overseeing the guards, with some various rifles officers as well looking over at their ranks, and Paras officers seeming to be taking their positions as well. The RAF are making their final preparations, and as you can see there, the standard bearer for the Parachute Regiment positioning himself ready for the commencement of the parade there. But yeah, on parade, starting off at the front of the parade, we have the Royal Air Force, or a contingent representing the Royal Air Force from both, I'm assuming, number 1 group and number 2 group, with some a large amount of attendance, which is very good, with 2 very long ranks there, and some nice medals there on some of the NCOs and officers as well. Again, moving on, we have the Parachute Regiment, and again, decent attendance there from them, taking position there as their representing officer, with a not very nice rack of medals there. Next to them, of course, is the newly commissioned Rifles Regiment, the newest regiment in the British Army, with decent attendance again for a brand new regiment. And alongside them is my old regiment, the Grenadier Guards, with absolutely amazing attendance from them, again headed by Lieutenant Emoji Law. And then that's the army, and then there's also a decently sized contingent from the Royal Navy, which is a lot bigger than what I was expecting compared to the rehearsals the other day. So got some decent numbers there from the Royal Navy, and alongside them at the rear of the parade we have, of course, the Royal Marine Commandos from the Royal Marines, and that is all of the attendance on parade. As I said, there's also the King's Royal Hussars stationed at the Buckingham Palace, and heading the parade, leading the commands, is of course, I believe, Colonel now, Monster, although he could be a Lieutenant Colonel still, I'm not sure, I can't quite see the insignia, but I believe he's a Colonel. Again, all the regiments being brought up into slope arms by Monster there, commencing the parade. A royal salute should be given shortly, as the car carrying His Majesty the King arrives into Horse Guards Parade. There we go, there's the commands there for the royal salute, to which the standards will be flourished. Takes us forward the parade. All the various regiments have now been combined back into slope arms, and Colonel Monster Ghost will then march up to the king there, and then will ask for leave to continue on with the parade with the salutes there, given with his sword. March past will be conducted past the stand here with all of the members of the royal family. And the officer leading the parade will then return to his post there to then command the regiments and formations on the parade to turn to their right, and then the officers and senior NCOs respectively will take up their positions. As can be seen in the Rifles Regiment, where the warrant officer, I believe it's a warrant officer there at the rear, begged for mercy, taking his position, or maybe just another senior NCO, and then their two officers. I cannot remember the name of their commanding officer, but I know that is, I believe, Second Lieutenant Edward Dalby, heading there just behind the commanding officer. I cannot remember what the commanding officer is called. Yeah, and all the soldiers, this is the roadblocksy part where everyone gets into their little marching box, so almost authentic. Although, as you can see, the colonel leading the parade has taken his position, and all of the contingents are more or less in place as the royal family looks on. There is also spectators, or civilian spectators, which is mostly just this Grenadier Guards veteran here, which I believe is, of course, none other than Jeremy Omidra. Apologies for any mispronunciations of his last name. It's Irish, so I do not speak Irish, as I'm sure regular viewers of WilliamsTV will know. Again, the parades there, just taking their final formations, but everything so far has gone very smoothly with a prompt start on time, so very good execution, of course. And the Royal Air Force contingent looking very large indeed. And now the command given for the march past is now being given, of course, and they will then step off. As each contingent passes the Royals, a eyes right is given by the officers, of course. To which an eyes front will be given once each contingent has fully passed the parachute regiment is passing the Royals leading the British Army, followed by the Rifles Regiment, again the British Army's newest regiment, very recently indeed. And bringing up the rear of the army is the Grenadier Guards. navy passing the Majesty of the King, followed by the Royal Marines, bringing up the rear of the parade as it passes by. He is taking the salute, and the parade comes to a mark time, which is where they are marching on the spot, as it were, and this is so that His Majesty the King can enter his vehicle and travel up for the proceedings at the Buckingham Palace. As we can see, the parade line up, leading all the way down to the end of Horse Guards Parade on that line there, where the procession will then head up the Mall towards Buckingham Palace. And again, just looking right there, the procession forming a very long line indeed. It seems His Majesty the King and the other members of the royal family are now entering royal vehicles there. That's probably a proper term for that, that I'm aware of, but now the vehicles will take their place, I believe, just in front of the parachute regiment, behind the RAF in that nice little gap there. Very nice. Bentley and Rolls-Royce as the selected vehicles, and then a forward march is given, which follows the Royal Air Force heading up down Horse Guards Road, leaving the Horse Guards Parade. Now we watch as the procession marches past the Royal Air Force from there. Royal vehicles, and gun salutes are being given up here from Buckingham Palace as well, which will continue for some time. Then followed by the King's Royal Hussars, we have the Parachute Regiment marching past, followed by the Rifles Regiment, of course, and then the extremely long rank of Grenadier Guards there. Bringing up the rear of the British Army, of course. And then following the Grenadier Guards is the Royal Navy. And behind the Royal Navy is the Marines. As the Royal Marines pass there, we shall turn our cameras down to the Mall, where the parade turns onto there and slowly makes its way towards Buckingham Palace. Making quite the sight, the Rifles wheeling around that corner there very nicely indeed. Followed by the Grenadier Guards. A very nice feel there once again. As we move our cameras down the mall, down the outside, we see the parade slowly making its way with Admiralty Arch in the background there. Again, the rear of the procession with the Royal Marines making its way onto the slough. Again, a very, very long procession indeed, forming all aspects of the British Armed Forces. Well, not entirely, of course, as the King's Royal Hussars, whilst taking part in the procession, are still up at Buckingham Palace, carrying out the gun salutes, as the text there indicates, with the commands for that being given. Now, of course, this is all amidst large operational commitments from the British Armed Forces within Northern Ireland, following the escalation of tensions there. Obviously, kicking off largely with a large increase in violence last night, at about 6 o'clock, I believe it was. Whilst I was interviewing. Wait, no, that was Friday I'm thinking of. But yes, definitely there was an increase in tensions last night, which resulted in accusations of admiral abuse and all sorts of stuff, and Irish incursions over the British border. Very chaotic evening indeed. But the British Armed Forces were present, and then again earlier tonight we saw riots earlier this evening about 5 o'clock within Middletown in Northern Ireland. And we watched the procession pass as St James's Palace on the left here, one of the royal residencies where the Grenadier Guards, which are near the rear of the parade now, take up their guard duties. But yes, anyway, so this is all amidst rising operational commitments. As I said, the earlier riots having taken place earlier at 5 o'clock this evening, with I believe the British Armed Forces being present now. So amongst all of the ceremonial preparation for this large-scale parade, they're also serving in their operational capacity. Truly commendable activity tonight as well. Very large numbers from across the forces. Parades like this are always a splendid sight to see, myself having taken part in the coronation of King Edward, and the funeral of King Robert as well. Now, the gun salute's been finished. Unfortunately, our cameras did not reach Buckingham Palace whilst that was still going on. However, that's just finished. So the King's Royal Hussars will then start forming up on parade, where they will then meet the rest of the procession, which is making its way past St James's Palace at the rear towards Buckingham Palace. And I'd imagine the front by now is probably not far off Buckingham Palace indeed. As we pan our cameras towards the end of the mile, it does appear the parade is making its way towards Buckingham Palace relatively quickly. Again, the procession, the front of the procession now, finishes its journey down the mile, whilst the rear with the Royal Marines is probably still passing St James's Palace. So it's a very long procession indeed, and the various contingents will continue into the gardens of Buckingham Palace at this point, with the royal vehicles diverting upon reaching the gates to where His Majesty the King shall exit and walk through Buckingham Palace to reach the rear of the gardens there. There we go, His Majesty the King being transported past our cameras, followed by the parachute regiment, of course. I think we're all quite familiar with the order of this parade, so I'm not sure what benefit me calling all that does. I suppose if there's any new viewers, but again, the Royal Navy, which will be followed by the Royal Marines, makes its way towards the end of the map. Oh yeah, there's the Royal Marines, where they then make their way around. Yeah, and there's the Royal vehicles, as I said, diverting off, where they then head through the sort of main gates into the quadrangle. I assume that's what you'd call it. Royal Navy there marching at double time by the looks of things. And the Royal Marines just casually taking their time. We'll catch them. We shall move our cameras upwards as the ranks make their way into Buckingham Palace. Using our drone cameras there, of course. The Grenadier Guards making their way through the gates there. Which would of course normally be utilised for the old guard in the process of changing the guard, although changing the guard, despite in real life happening daily in the UK, it's a bit more of a prestigious ceremonial event due to the immense numbers required for it. And also, as we bring the cameras into Buckingham Palace, we now see there is a large setup here to celebrate the Jubilee, which is where the rest of the celebrations shall occur from. Many members of the public gathered in the garden background. Now the Royal Air Force has halted in its position there. The parachute regiment come in behind it. So all wheelie around it. They're going to form up, I believe, on the other side. And the rifles following on there, the Grenadier Guards diverting into that little building there. And we shall see why later, because there is a reason why, but I shall not spoil it. Although, if you've noticed the decorations in the background, that's quite an obvious hint. The royal party is not yet come out, as they're waiting for the rest of the parade to form up. Here are the artillery guns earlier that were firing. I don't think we actually captured any audio from that, but the King's Royal Hussars are already here, formed up and on parade, having carried out the gun salute earlier, and also having several other ranks that would have been waiting there as well. So the parachute regiment now forms up, joining the rest of the British Army in its position, with the Colonel Monster in his final position there, and the Royal Navy and Royal Marines taking their places as well. So the entire parade has now joined up here at Buckingham Palace Gardens, where the remainder of the celebrations shall be carried out. Once the Royal Marines have finished adjusting there, they will the entire parade shall be ordered to carry out a left turn in order to face the Buckingham Palace, much like the King's Royal Hussars is already facing the palace, so they will just ignore the order. Although there's always one or two who don't quite get the memo. Oh god, an artillery piece has just been fired off by the looks of things by someone. And the royal party is slowly gathering at the doors there, ready to exit. But with that, all the contingents are in place, and of course are ready to begin shortly, turning to the left. As you can see, left turn being commanded there, and all the formations conducting left turns, the officers and NCOs of course taking their place, as can be demonstrated by the Royal Navy and Royal Marines there, as well as the standard bearers of course, the standards being quite a notable part of this parade. That is definitely a very nice detail. I do love a bit of standard drill indeed. Now the dressings will be taken, so this is how they give their spacing, so they're carrying out a right dress. As you can see, all the ranks will look to the right there, except for the what is known as the right hand markers, which are these two individuals on the far end, except he didn't quite get the memo. And everyone else is to take their dressings, as they're known, off of them, which is an approximate arm's length away from the person to your right. Just a bit of drill knowledge there for those unfamiliar with British drill. Drill, of course, being anything marching or ceremonial within the military, for anyone who has no idea what that is and thinks I'm talking about rap music, or hardware appliances, of course. And the eyes front should be given at some point, just as the various contingents take their dressings, although usually by this point they all seem to be finalising their positions. And as you can see, I think many of the Royal Marines have already put their eyes to the front, so preemptive command a little bit, but all the dressings, again, as I said, pretty decent spacing, as can be seen, about roughly one arm's length away from the person to your right. Eyes front being called there, so everyone's heads will return to the front, and the dressings are concluded. From there, I believe a royal salute will be given, but don't quote me on that, we'll find out in a minute. And this is likely to occur as the royal party exits the Buckingham Palace entrance there. So we'll just pan our drone cameras around. Last minute addition to the Royal Marines, we'll just pop some clothes on before we get done by Ofcom for indecent exposure. Now the command for a royal salute will be, to shoulder arms rather. Now the band of the Grenadier Guards, or Corps of Drums, I believe, by all technicalities, despite it being more of a band, but they are in Corps of Drums uniforms, so I'm assuming it's the Corps of Drums, is taking up their positions on the stage here, where they'll be performing the music for the rest of tonight's celebrations. Again, the rest of the parade, they're being called into shoulder arms, which is the position they're in currently, as demonstrated by the Royal Navy. With the drum major there of the Corps of Drums, Edward Molyneux, Warrant Officer Class 2, commanding his band to turn to the right. The British Army being commanded to ground arms, which means they are placing their rifles down on the ground. And all the musicians there taking their various postings. The royal family has exited Buckingham Palace. Unfortunately, we didn't get that on camera. However, they're all nicely formed up, with His Majesty the King at the front. The parade now being called to remove their headdress. As such, where 3 cheers for His Majesty the King shall be given. Again, the rest of the Grenadier Guards band, the Corps of Drums, taking up their final positions. And a large hooray will be then given as we try and capture everyone on parade. There we go, we've got the whole scene. The drum major again, Edward Molyneux, taking his final place there as the Corps of Drums is all set up. Now the parade is being commanded to replace their headdress, which means they will all put their headdress back on. And His Majesty the King, again seen there, surrounded by various dignitaries and other members of the royal family. the parade being called to take up their arms again, having previously left them on the ground. Obviously to remove their headdress, as trying to take your headdress off whilst holding a SA-80 is probably not the best idea. Corps of Drums performing Mr. Blue Sky. Or Grenadier Guards Corps of Drums, rather, to be specific. Commencing the celebrations here at Buckingham Palace. There being a lot happening here, there will be a flypast by the Royal Air Force due to take place following the conclusion of the main bulk of the activities here. The Corps of the Grenadier Guards, Corps of Drums of the Grenadiers Guards performing Mr. Blue Sky. The Royal Navy there, clearing and cannon. And the Royal Marines. And the Royal Air Force, of course, as well. A very large contingent from the Royal Air Force. The Royals listen to the Corps of Drums, as well as all these other various dignitaries who I have no idea who are. Well, I recognise one or two faces, but I cannot. There's the Regimental Sergeant Major of the Grenadier Guards, John Killen, there, also flanked by Lieutenant. Oh no, Captain now, emoji. I did not realise he was a captain, but there we go. We've got the rest of the British Army over this area, of course, as well. Oh god, what happened to my camera? The King's Royal Hussars, standing there with their standards. The Parachute Regiment. And the Rifles Regiment as well. That is the end of Mr. Blue Sky. I'm not sure what's coming up next. I don't know if there's more music or anything else of the likes. Sort of beyond here, I did not witness the rehearsals on Friday, so I have been sent a rough list of what's meant to happen, but from what I can see, is general celebrations. So yes, we have music from the Corps of Drums at the moment, and then there'll be a fly past later with the national anthem occurring as well, and then there'll be an after party following that. So that is the agenda for what is coming up. I'm not sure if there's much more music planning to come from the Corps of Drums, but we shall await, unless I'm missing something that's happening over here. No, we've just got the formation there. Right, let's get some nice coverage of that. Again, His Majesty the King celebrating 1 year of his reign. And on his right is obviously Prince Ismail Wellesley, who is the Chief of Defence Staff and has been overseeing much of the British Army's operations in Northern Ireland lately as well, and some other, I believe that's the Duke of Edinburgh on his left as well, in Royal Marines attire, and then in Grenadier Guards attire, I believe that is Louis Wellesley, or Prince Louis Wellesley, rather. I cannot remember the formal titles of half these people. But again, I believe there's more music from the corps of drums. I'm unsure, it's gone a little bit quiet at the minute. But nevertheless, a big ceremony indeed. Oh, we've got the YMCA playing next from the corps of drums. I've got a lights show as well, look at that. Wow, there we go. With the Jubilee beacon lit up there as well. Dancing there going off in all Air Force. Full lights display, or again a bit of dancing from the corps of drums as well, with the drummer there. There's also now a trumpeter as well, I think. Oh, he's stopped. Probably got shot. Oh, he's just had another dance. You never know, I suppose he's quite tired dancing with a big drum like that on your front. Not the lightest instruments to carry. Although that chap with the tuba next to him has also got quite a lot of weight to carry there, I would have thought. We have another song. I don't know what this is, but more music from the corps of drums that appears to not be playing because presumably the ID is broken, or it's just lagging. Now I'm assuming that is a broken ID there. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there will be a fly past from the Royal Air Force later after the musical celebrations conclude. But I do think either I just can't hear it or the ID is broken for it. But again, all the personnel patiently stood to attention in shoulder arms, of course. And just bringing a full view of the entire parade. And like I said, they're all here amongst operational commitments in Northern Ireland as well. We have I believe that is the Chief of General Staff, Globe, joining in the Rifles ranks there. Of course, very fitting. Whilst we're with the Rifles as well, we may talk about their lack of bayonets, with this being one of the traditions of the Rifles being a very unique regiment in some of its traditions, and is well known for usually marching in double time, which does look quite funny to watch, but it's a fast-paced march, carrying, or walk in some manners, where they would carry the rifles by their sides in real life. Although I don't know if they actually do that within Roblox, but certainly in real life that's how they would do it. And also lots of running on the spot as well. Again, a very very unique regiment there, an infantry unit within the British Army. Whilst we're here, we might as well talk about the different regiments and their roles. So obviously the Rifles being British Army's primary infantry regiment, or one of the primary infantry regiments, carrying out all manner of infantry operations, I'm sure, probably also including a bit of mechanised infantry utilising vehicles. We have the Parachute Regiment, which serves as the British Army's airborne infantry, very elite to get into, and they have very high standards of combat ability. We also have the Corps of Drummers now performing Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. And we have the King's Royal Hussars, the British Army's armoured regiment, who provide armoured operations, armoured reconnaissance, and I believe armoured reconnaissance, and also probably a bit of armoured infantry as well. So all manner of operations, as well as ceremonial gun salutes, as was carried out earlier. Unfortunately, we didn't have our cameras up there. The Royal Air Force, which is their ranks have struck as many of the pilots have disappeared, who go and man their aircraft for the ongoing flight path shortly. But the Royal Air Force assembled, I'm assuming, from both number 1 group and number 2 group. Number 1 group supplying the fighter jet elements of the Royal Air Force, and number 2 group providing the logistics operations for the Western Force. Basically logistics. The Royal Marine Commandos, of course, the Royal Navy's elite infantry warfare unit, providing high levels of amphibious operations, which includes boarding various vessels or oil rigs, seizing drugs and drug busting operations, or carrying out regular operation. Again, a very highly elite unit, much like the Parachute Regiment. And then we have, of course, the Royal Navy, performing up from all areas of the fleet, which forms the British Armed Forces sea deterrent protects the British waters in many forms of operations, with personnel there from HMS Albion and HMS King Daniel by the looks of things. I'm not sure what these ships provide. I'm not too familiar with the Royal Navy's fleet, but we can hear above the sound of jets, and there should be a flypast occurring shortly over Buckingham Palace, with that having concluded the Queen song there from the Grenadier Guards. Again, the Grenadier Guards, of course, comprising the British Army's ceremonial arm, as well as providing infantry capabilities as well as elite infantry soldiers, and also comprising of the Corps of Drums, who are currently on stage performing various songs. They fly past, I cannot tell what direction it's coming from, but there is sparks over there, so I'm assuming somewhere in that direction. We will keep our cameras looking out, but I believe that is what is due to happen next. We'll see if we can... Oh, there we go, there's our first plane. I believe, I'm not too familiar with planes. I think that's a Globemaster, but like I said, I'm not too familiar. There we go, passing over, very laggy, so I've already missed it, but that was our first vehicle. Again, a logistics aircraft there. We'll see if we can bring our cameras around for a better view as things fly over the palace there. Our second aircraft, which seems to be some sort of transport plane of sorts, passing over there on top of Buckingham Palace. And as we raise our camera, you can see quite the convoy of various aircraft in the distance there, with some helicopters coming up immediately. I believe that is an Apache. No, that's not an Apache, that's a Chinook, which is of course sort of a transport helicopter. with capabilities to carry troops, supplies, casualties, whatever needs transporting. Which is quite some distance off of Buckingham Palace still, but is making its way slowly over towards the palace. And following that, I believe, is a Hercules aircraft, which I think it's a Hercules. I think that's a form of transport aircraft as well, and is also what the parachute regiment used to conduct airborne operations. Following that is some sort of, again, transport plane, which is being escorted by 2 Eurofighter Typhoons, which are fighter jets. Maybe more. Oh no, there's more. There is, I think, what seems to be the Battle of Britain memorial flight, which is their. What's this plane? What is it? I know what this is, but I cannot remember the name of it. It's a World War II transport plane. I can tell you that much, folks. And I believe it was the one that they used to tow the gliders during the Battle of Arnhem. I can only remember that because of Bridge to Fire, and also the carrying Well, I know it's something like a reporting flight over, making its way over. And then there is a large formation here. I believe this is the red arrows coming up on camera here, all flying in formation. The parade will then be called back into a sloping of arms there. And the parade, I think, concludes at this point. All these celebrations as a whole. Obviously for King Alexander, who is there in his British Army uniform, having previously served as the Chief of General Staff as well of the British Army, and has an extensive amount of experience within the Army as an officer, and presumably under CEO ranks as well, I'm not sure, but certainly an Army veteran there for sure, and is now obviously the King. And the Corps of Drums performing once again. Ismail Wellesley calling the conclusion of the parade, thanking all the persons for attending. That sounds like anyway, with that more or less concludes the parade here. So with that, thank you all very much for watching. We've had very good viewership here on WilliamsTV, which has been lovely. I think it's been the most views we've had on the broadcast. So thank you all for sitting through that and watching the parade. A big thank you to the British Armed Forces, of course, for all their time and preparation that has gone into putting this ceremony together. I believe I'm assuming Lieutenant, unless she's been promoted as captain now, like Major was, Sophie Williams, I believe, took a leading role in this from what I can gather, so big well done to her, as well as all the other individuals involved in the planning and execution of the Jubilee parade there for His Majesty the King. God Save the King, of course, 1 year of reign there. And with that, thank you all very much for tuning in to Williams TV. I've been Adrian Williams, here live from Buckingham Palace. Future broadcast announcements will, of course, come up for Williams TV in due course. But with that, thank you all very much. I've been Adrian Williams here, live from Buckingham Palace. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of